What's up, North Point? What's up? How's it going? I don't know why I did that. I was like, oh, I just want to start it differently. I always say like, well, good morning, North Point. Hey, it's good to see you. And Republic and Nixa and Dream Center. Hey, we're glad you guys are with us this morning. I want to take a real quick second to welcome those tuning in online. Hey, you are a big deal. This community is a big deal to us. So we're glad that you're with us. And listen, if you would today, send in a prayer request, take a next step, do something to where we can connect with you and follow up because you matter to us and we're glad that you're tuning in. And man, 2022, here it is. It's my first time getting to teach in 2022. And I'm excited because this year for me is just going way better than it was last year. Anybody else? No. No, not really, is it? It was funny. We were in a creative meeting the other day, like some of the staff, and we were thinking of, like, what are we going to do for Easter? Throwing out creative ideas. And someone said, we should talk about the tough season that we're coming out of. And I'm like, I thought we did that last year. So it's not really ending. The battles aren't really ending. Just because the dates on a calendar change doesn't mean the battles ever stop. And we got lots of battles. If you're parents, you got baby battles. If you're dating, you got boyfriend and girlfriend battles. We've got battles in politics. We've got battles with COVID. If COVID was a person, I'd punch him. I hate this thing. My worst fear is that we would ever have to go back to a summer and I'd have to wear a mask again in a Missouri summer. It's the most disgusting thing in the world. So hot and sweaty, it's gross. But yeah, we got a lot of battles. And so what I love is that we've taken the time here and we've put together this series to kind of talk about who are we as a church? What does it mean to be a North Pointer and to find and follow Jesus here at North Point? And so last week, Jeremy talked about what does it mean to find Jesus as a church. How is that our identity? And I think that's a great place to start because one of the things he mentioned was people are most open to the gospel, to the news of Jesus in times of transition, in times of tension, and in times of trouble. That's when people are most open. And when you're in those places, you're extremely vulnerable. Life is hard. And so we really, we strive to be the church that will welcome that and all the mess that goes along with it because we believe that's where Jesus can meet somebody and begin to change the rest of their life for generations and generations to come. So that's who we are. And so we do a lot of things. We think along those lines to make decisions as a church based on those things. So as a North Pointer, that's kind of our identity too. So if you come, you got to be into this mission. You got to understand, man, this is who we are. Like if you don't like the smell of smoke, you're probably not going to like it here. Because that's the community we're reaching. I was one of them. I came from that walk of life and God did a tremendous work in my life and he can for you too if you're here today. Well, today what I want to do though is I want to talk about the second half of our mission is how do we follow Jesus? Because the truth is that trouble and tension and transition, they don't change once we find Jesus. They continue. So what is it like to follow Jesus? How do we do that in today's world? So I'm going to jump in. If you got your notes with you, you can pull out your app and follow along and take notes. But I want to start with just this simple idea that following Jesus is a journey we take. It's not a program we complete. It's not. When I first started following Jesus, I thought for sure 5 weeks was all it was going to take to change my life. I thought in 5 weeks, I finished a 4-step program. I was going to walk out of the door and angels and Beyonce would be singing, Halo, Halo. And I would just be flying around. And I thought everything was going to be perfect. And I was wrong. I was so wrong. It took a long time. It was a journey that I'm on and I'm still on. There are still times where I don't line up and my life isn't always a good reflection of Jesus, but because it's a journey. And we know what it's like to follow somebody in this world. We live in a world where it's very easy to follow somebody in the world of social media, right? All you got to do is like the page and you follow along. And so I was doing some research this week. I was looking at like Facebook stats and Instagram, Twitter, and all that. I'm going to give you the Facebook one. So young people, I'm not old. I know you're thinking I am because I'm going with Facebook. But it was just interesting. And they gave a definition of what it means to follow somebody in this culture of the digital world. It says this. It says, when you like someone's page, it means that you are interested and you would like to keep up on updates. I was like, okay. So who are the most followed people then? This is fascinating. The first one's like, whatever, it's Facebook app. It's 190 million people have liked their page. 190 million people, that's a lot of people. But then Samsung was number 2 in the world. Why? I got no idea. Maybe the OLED, ABC, TVs, all the crazy things they're coming out with now. But number 3 I get, and you probably will too, Cristiano Ronaldo. For sure. Listen, some of you might know him as a soccer player. Girls, you might know him because he's a very attractive man. Dudes, you probably know him because he's a very attractive man. He's a good-looking guy. What can I say? I remember my trainer. I had a trainer in Los Angeles, and he was like, dude, if you want to stay motivated, pick somebody you want to look like and put that picture on your phone. So I walked around for like a year with a picture of Cristiano Ronaldo. Apparently, I missed some steps along the way because that did not make me look like Cristiano Ronaldo. It just gave me weird conversations to explain later on. Like, why you got this dude on your phone? The fourth that blew my mind, and I want you to guess. I'm just giving a little interaction. Who do you think would be the 4th most followed page in the world? Beyonce. I would have thought the same thing too. What do you think, Republic? Nixa? Dream Center? Listen, it's Mr. Bean. Isn't that mind-blowing? Mr. Bean with a strong 130 million people following the page. What in the world? I guess if you're interested in Mr. Bean, to follow Mr. Bean, all you got to do is like the page and you can stay up to date on the current updates with Mr. Bean. Is he even alive still? I don't know. But what's happened is this approach to following, because it's so ingrained in our culture and so easy to do, it's easy to take that approach when we come to church to subscribe to Jesus and to like the church and then show up week in, week out to get our weekly updates. And yet, when we do that though, I'm willing to go out on a limb here and bet that there's areas of our lives where we still feel like we're missing it when it comes to our relationship with Jesus. Like we feel like he's there on Sundays, but in my marriage, he's not there. Definitely not my spouse. Don't say anything, just keep looking at me. My parenting, that's a big bridge to cross. Jesus, we don't have an illustration of him being a parent, but then to take that into our context and ask how would he parent, we do have examples of how he treated children and how he welcomed them. But do I see that in my life as a parent? For some of us, it's our careers or our hobbies and our habits, the things we do routinely. We're like, I got Jesus over here, but oh man, I feel like there's something I'm missing. What about our desires and our attitudes? That's a big one. It was a big one for me because I'm going to give you an illustration of what I thought Christianity was. I thought Christianity and following Jesus meant that I just took all the things that I really wanted to do and I bottled them up. And I put them in this, it's the best illustration I can give you is like this dangerous rabbit-eared dog that just, and I just keep him caged in. That was what I thought it was just not doing the things that I really wanted to do. But it was a misunderstanding of who Jesus was. Jesus didn't come in to build a cage around this rabbit-eared dog. He came to transform that dog into a puppy that doesn't need a cage. And so, for me, there's been a lot of areas where I've felt disconnected from Jesus. And if you felt disconnected in any of the areas I mentioned, there's countless areas where we can feel this like, is this what it means? Am I getting this thing right? I want us to learn from some of my mistakes and things that I've gone through today. But I think a great place for us to begin is kind of, what did Jesus define as his follower? Since we're following him, it might be a good idea what he had as an idea. So let's take a look at Luke chapter 6. And it says this, 39 through 40. It says, then Jesus gave the following illustration. Can one blind person lead another? Won't they both fall into a ditch? Students are not greater than their teacher, but the student who is fully trained will become like the teacher. So in your notes, write this down. This is a simple fact. We follow Jesus to become like Jesus. Very easy, very simple to get, a lot harder to apply, I know. But the goal is every day to become a little more like Jesus. And that's difficult. And there's two primary tensions that I want to talk about, and the things that kind of distract us or get roadblocks to that I want to talk about today. But the first part is this, is that we follow Jesus a lot of times because we're interested, right? That's one of the attractive things about Jesus, is we feel like if we just like him enough, that we're going to be able to be committed and stay following him through the hard times and the bad. And, for the first year of my journey with Jesus, when I first became interested in Jesus and I made Jesus the leader of my life, I never really moved beyond that interest level. Like I was really interested. Like, trust me, I listened to K-Love Radio and Lauren Daigle and Chris Tomlin and Lincoln Brewster, whoever was big back then. And I was really into them. And I got involved in serving, and I was doing a bunch of stuff, but it was all just to cage in what I really wanted to do. And it kind of all fell apart because about a year into this thing, my best friend was killed. And I remember I wasn't interested anymore. All I wanted to do was just go back to the same hobbies, the same attitudes, the same habits, the same places. Because I was only interested in the community and all the nice people who are really encouraging, and they are. Church is an awesome place, and it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a welcoming place. But my story with Jesus never really moved beyond that place. I was interested in Jesus coming to me, but then in the following, I was like, I feel like that takes a little bit more. And so I kind of just did the church thing, but never really dealt with what was in here. And Jesus says this, and as he goes down the passage to verse 43 and 49, he says, a good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree can't produce, and a bad tree can't produce good fruit. A tree is identified by its fruit. Figs are never gathered from thorn bushes, and grapes are never picked from bramble bushes. A good person produces good things from the treasury of a good heart, and an evil person produces evil things from the treasury of an evil heart. What he says next matters. He says, what you say flows from what's in your heart. Now, we could stop there. That's a good verse to memorize. I've done that passage. I like this verse because what's in my heart really does matter. It really does matter. But what he says next, Jesus didn't stop there. What he says next is very important, because right after he says what's in you is going to flow out of your mouth, he says so, and connects them together. So why do you keep calling me Lord, Lord? Now, doubling up that word, Lord, Lord, he's talking about positional authority right here. He's not talking about, it's a title. He didn't say Messiah or the Son of Man or the Son of God. He said, why do you call me Lord, Lord? That's a position of authority, like a king. When you don't do what I say, I will show you what it's like when someone comes to me, listens to my teaching, and follows it. There's that word follow, so it's our cue to chime in. He says it's like a person building a house who digs deep Now, I love this because Matthew shares the same account. This is part of the Sermon on the Mount, but Luke adds those two words in. He says he digs deep and lays a foundation on solid rock. And when the flood waters rise, when a child gets sick, when you lose somebody you loved unexpectedly or expectedly, when your marriage is on shaky ground, when your children are just going AWOL, when those things happen, when those floodwaters rise and they break against the house, it stands because it's well built. But anyone who hears and doesn't obey is like a person who builds a house on the ground without a foundation. When the floods sweep down against the house, it will collapse it into a heap of ruins. Now, I want you to listen to this. There's two people in this story that Jesus is telling. And get this, both of them are interested enough to go and hear the teaching. Both of them were. Only one of them was invested enough to go and apply it. And that's what I want you to write in your notes, is that following Jesus, it's more than being interested, it's being invested. And an investment comes at a cost. It costs us something to invest. But why do we do that? Why do people invest money? Because they do that because they want an ROI. They're looking for a return. And it's not a return of just a feel good or a flash in the pan. I'm looking for a changed heart. My life was so messed up. I want a new life that comes with Jesus. I got to be invested. I gotta invest. At the end of the day, I'm not looking to return this good life. It's mine. I want to own it. I want to possess it. So I have to invest into it. And that comes with a cost sometimes. My boys, they like the show. It's been out on TV for like a year now or so, Jurassic Park. I don't know if you guys seen it. It's like the cartoon one. My boys, when they watch a lot of that show, you know what happens? Everybody in the house knows it. Because the moment they watch enough of that show, you hear it. Like you can be upstairs in another room, you can hear a roar. And I don't know why they don't identify with the humans, but they identify with the T-Rex every time. And then they come, like you can hear them stomping up the stairs. And they're looking for me because they want to bite me. They want to bite me. Now, that's an investment. They spend enough time watching that show. Something internally happens in them where their fingers and their arms get shorter and their mouth gets larger. And they want to hunt because dinosaurs hunted. And they come looking for me. And they bite. And it comes at a risk to them because they know dad's not a punk and I'm going to take away TV time and they're going to get in trouble. But even with the risk associated with it, they're so invested because they've spent enough time there that they become like the dinosaur. When it comes to following Jesus, the more time we can spend with him, the more time you can spend with Jesus. And there's lots of different ways to do that. But spending time with him is how you become more like him. And you see, if we can just understand that following Jesus, there's an enormous worth that comes with that. It changes our perspective on some of the spiritual disciplines that you hear churches talk about. Like just reading and praying isn't going to change your life. If you just add that into your thing and it becomes another to-do list on your already ginormous to-do list and you feel like you got to get all this done, then you like skate through it or you sleep through it or you get like 30 seconds in and then you got to go get your kid because he's biting someone. Like that's what happens in our life. But if we understand the worth of the investment, we can simplify life to make those moments matter. Because listen, I don't want to force myself to get up and do some of the things that Jesus did, to read and to pray, because I feel like that's what Christians do. I want to do it because I get a moment to encounter a living God, to sit and to be with him. It's a shift in our perspective. It's a heart change is what it does. Drake, famous philosopher of our day, he once said, trust me, you get what you give. And I feel like the more we invest into our relationship with Jesus, the more we're going to experience some of those results. But it takes an investment. Let me give you the second thing that gets in the way or kind of can be confusing, and maybe some of the reasons we don't experience all that Jesus has to offer is that we follow Jesus sometimes when it's convenient. And what happens is we end up compartmentalizing our faith in that process. And the reason we compartmentalize is because a lot of us, we want to follow happiness, if we're honest, before we want to follow Jesus. And it gets in the way of that. It takes away from that investment. And we're looking for an ROI from some of these things in life that can never give it to us. I call them the problem P's. And it's not like it's 4 of them. It's not like when you're 3 Mr. Pibbs in to a movie and you know it's the ending scene. You got to jet to the restroom. It's these 4 areas of life that I think we look for an ROI in that we just never get. And the first one is it's our possessions. We chase happiness and we follow after happiness in our possessions. Bigger house, a bigger car, better shoes, a new wardrobe. And if we get those, we will just be happy. How is that working? Has it delivered? For me, it hasn't. Not yet. And essentially what I'm saying is when I start to think that way is I'm agreeing with this thought. I am the total sum of what I have. And that's what I add up to. Second one is our popularity. Are we in all the right circles in life? Do we know all the who's who? Are we connected to all of the right people? And essentially what happens then is we start to believe that we are who we're connected to. Third one is our position. And some of us, we've been there. We will sacrifice all the right things to get to all the wrong places. And essentially what I'm saying is the total sum of my worth is I am what I do. But tell me where the ROI is once I can't do that anymore. We'll lose out on happiness. Here's the second one, or the last one. Is power. Our power. I am the total sum of all that I'm able to control. And we search for ROIs in this, and they never, ever return. And so when it comes to following Jesus, sometimes those things take a different path. And we search for those in light of the opportunity at hand to stay following Jesus. And so here's what we got to do. We got to learn how to follow Jesus in the good times and the bad. If following Jesus is a lifelong journey, then he doesn't leave us when things fall apart. But we need to make sure that we turn to him. That he's with us and we can follow him through this. And this is challenging because this goes beyond the lip service of Christianity. Sometimes Christians can come into church and sing all the right songs, but they're terrible parents. They're awful to work with, but they can quote scripture. Sometimes Jesus or Proverbs, it says even a fool looks wise when he keeps his mouth shut. And some of the Christians I met before are some of the loudest people I know. Jesus is saying this. He's saying there's a different way. And so here's what happens when we compartmentalize. Or let me give you the kind of what we need in order to deal with this is we need a holistic spirituality. And what I mean by that is this, because I know that term sounds a lot like a Volkswagen driving down the Pacific Coast Highway with a surfboard on top type of vibe. What I'm meaning is this, is that the sum of the individual components and parts of our life is not greater than all of our life put together. Like the total sum of who we are is greater than each individual component. And so an author I read, his name's Kenneth Boa, he wrote this in a book on organic discipleship. He said this, he said, human beings are more than highly organized collections of atoms, molecules, cells, tissues, organs, and systems. None of these can fully account for our minds, our affections, our wills, let alone our capacity to relate to a timeless spiritual being who created us. And then he said this, there's more to us than we know. And so the more serious we get on trying to follow Jesus and to become like him, with the idea of becoming like him, the more these problem P's try to take us on a different trail. So the answer then for a lot of people has become compartmentalization. Let me explain what that means, just in case you don't know what it means. I didn't either, so I had to learn about it. Basically, it just means this: is that we take it and we make our spirituality a component like every other component of our life. So, like we've got family, we've got our friends, we've got our work, our job, our sports, our school, and then we've got our spirituality. And so what that does then is it reduces spirituality into the times when we just do those specific things, like when we read or when we pray or if we attend a small group. And that becomes the extent of our spiritual life, just another component of it. But the problem is that creates this weird dichotomy between everyday life and a life of following Jesus. And so the fear and what's not helpful is to become more spiritual, then we have to do more of those things, that we have to lock in and do that because that's what makes us spiritual. No, Jesus made you spiritual. And Jesus is on a journey with you. Now, there's appropriate times to turn back to him. There's appropriate times, and reading and praying and all of that, it helps cultivate that love and that desire we have for Jesus. But the more we continue to separate it, the further the trails begin to veer apart. And spirituality just becomes a fractal of our life. And Jesus would have this to say. I love this passage because some of you know my history. I don't come from church background. And Jesus goes a little bit gangster in this passage. It's kind of cool. I like the way he starts it. So I gave the Message version because I thought it was cool. It says this, Matthew 16. He says this, then Jesus went to work on his disciples. G'd up from the street up. Anyone who intends to come with me has to let me lead. You are not in the driver's seat. I am. Don't run from suffering. Embrace it. See, in a culture where happiness is the thing that's sought after, well, anything that produces an opportunity where we might have to experience pain or suffering, we run from it. And so Jesus says, don't run from it. Follow me and I'll show you how self-help is no help at all. Self-sacrifice is my way to finding yourself, your true self. And we live in a time and age where people are looking for their true self. Jesus says, to get that, to experience that, you got to follow me, but you're following me through all the areas I've walked through in life. Then he says this. He says, what kind of deal is it to get everything you want but lose yourself? What could you ever trade, or what could you ever trade your soul for? Your journey is marked. Our journey following Jesus will be marked by and identified by the same markings and the same things Jesus had going in his life. So here's how we need to think about Jesus. If you want to follow Jesus, remember this. Jesus is a tour guide, not a travel agent. He's a tour guide, not a travel agent. There's a difference. There is. A travel agent, what they do is they talk a big game, right? Because they're trying to sell you a package, they're trying to get you somewhere, but most of the time they've never been there. And so they don't know the details. They can't walk you through. But a tour guide, though, when you think about a tour guide, what does a tour guide do? They know all the highways and byways and the hidden things and the off the beaten path trails. And you know what they can do? They can walk you through some stuff because they've experienced some stuff. They live there. They know the territory. They're aware with it. When we think about what it means to follow Jesus, we're following a tour guide. He's with us every step of the way. And he's what he's telling to us is, don't run from me when life gets hard. Come to me because I've been through this. Jesus lost a friend. He betrayed him. Jesus grieved with people. He was sad with people. He was angry. Jesus has been where we've been, and he says he wants to guide us through and teach us what it's like to handle those scenarios so that we become like him. Because that's the goal of the student, is to become like him. I started this way. I'm going to close it by ending this way, but I'm going to add something. Following Jesus is a lifelong journey with Christ rather to Christ. We're not completing a 5-step program to become okay. We'll have tension, we'll have trouble, and we'll have transition along the way. But we want to stay lockstep with where God is going through it. And the more time we can invest, dig deep, change schedules, make arrangements for, to be with Jesus, the more we will respond like him. Our attitudes in our marriages will be like him. The way we parent, the way we treat people, the way we talk on social media, the way all of it, the time we spend with people that don't believe in Jesus, all of that will begin to change the more we invest in this. You know, as the passage goes on into chapter 7, there's these religious people that invite Jesus to come and have dinner at their place. And so they come in and they welcome him in. They come in and they sit down and it's all good. But there's a woman there who's known by her nightly activities. And her name was Mary. And Mary comes with a jar of alabaster. See, in that day, it was a guest that had notoriety, or a guest that you really wanted to honor and welcome. You would anoint them with oil. So she comes with this alabaster. This gives the whole thing. And then the Bible says that she took her tears and her hair. She let down her hair, which she could get killed for in that day. And she cleans Jesus' feet with her hair because she couldn't get to the head because of the table and the way that they were laying. She does this at his feet. And the religious people, they're upset. They're like, oh, man, what's going on here? And Jesus can tell what they're thinking. He says this. He says something, oh, man, it wrecked me. He says this. He says, you know, if a man gives out some money, he gives a guy $500, he gives another man $50. But none of them can have the ability to pay him back, and he forgives the debt. Who do you think loves that man more? It's the one with the bigger debt. The one that realizes how much they've been forgiven. How much they were not owed, but were privileged to. The religious people were interested in having Jesus over. Mary was invested in following him. And you know how I know that? Because Mary goes all the way to the cross and the tomb. And you never hear about those religious people again. It's an investment. It doesn't matter the mess you're in. You can make that commitment, but understand that commitment is tough sometimes. But Jesus said, don't run from pain. Run to me in the midst of your pain, and I'm going to take care of you. So let me ask you this. Think about this. What step are you on today in this journey with Jesus? If he's your trail guide and you're on a trail, where are you at? Because if you've made him the leader of your life, you're not working to get to him. You're on a journey with him. So we just got to figure out how to take another step and another step, one foot in front of the other. How do you get to the end of a 17-mile hike? One step at a time. So what's your next step today on this journey with Jesus? Let's pray. God, thank you so much for sending your son, God, to be a tour guide on this journey of life. God, give us the courage that it takes and the investment we've got to make Jesus the true leader of every area. God, that there would be nothing separated. That every day would be an opportunity for a new assignment from Jesus. God, who do we love? Who can we talk to? Who can we help? How can we be a part of somebody's transformational experience? God, what's going on in my heart? Where are my desires? God, help me identify these things. And let me place them at your feet and invest everything I have into your way so that I can become like you this morning. Jesus, help every one of us watching online at all of our campuses to invest into you and become like the teacher. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Well, hey, I want to take a quick second and give us an opportunity to do that, to take a next step. So if the ushers, I want to go ahead and invite the ushers at all of our locations to go ahead and come forward, because this time right now is an important time for us as a church, because as much as we exist for people to find and follow Jesus, we can't help you out with either one of those without a next step from you, if we don't hear from you. And that can be as simple as, hey, you're working on your parenting. You got these things going on in your marriage. You're taking a step forward. Whatever it is, write it down in the prayer request. And we've got some people that come together at all of our locations, pastors and volunteers that pray for these things. Let us know. We want to be involved in that. But we also got a step on there to make Jesus the leader of your life. And that's a big one. And it's an important one, but one we celebrate here because we know that there's no decision more important than that you can make in this lifetime. And so if that's you, if you're wrestling with it, here's my encouragement is do it. Write it down, check it, let us know so that we can help resource you, because we don't want you to go about this journey with Jesus alone. There's people that in the church that want to do that with you, and we want to help you out. And then we got serving. We got opportunities. The Bible talks about Jesus and how he came down not to be served by people, but so that he could serve people. So we've got opportunity. If you can push some buttons, you can make lights go up and down. It's really easy, so easy that I can't do it, but it's really easy. You can sing worship. I can sing worship. They just don't let me. But you can join any one of these teams wherever God has gifted you, or you have the talent. If you got the talent and the ability to crawl around on the floor and make a little kid feel loved by Jesus, awesome. If you can sit with a student and listen to all of their problems and still love them, awesome. We can, that's part of it. If you're able to do this, you can serve on the connections team. It's that easy. So there's lots of opportunities, lots of ways to get involved at any of our locations. So this is also an opportunity to sign up to be baptized. Peter said this. He said, once you make a decision to follow Jesus, the very next thing you do is you go and be baptized. Why? Jesus was baptized before he began his ministry. And in Matthew 28, it talks about the Great Commission and that we're to go to all the nations, baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But then he says, and teaching them to obey. I like that they put those two together. Why? Because when you start to follow Jesus, the first opportunity we have to obey is to be baptized. And so it's a great celebration that we celebrate at all of our locations, where we put an old life in and we raise a new life up, saying that, hey, they're making Jesus leader. It's a huge deal to us. So you can check that box too, and you can give financially, whether that's cash or check, or you text the numbers on the screen, whatever that is. But listen, this church, it exists because of faithful North Pointers everywhere, in Nixa, in DC, in Republic, and online, and everybody that contributes, every business. And you know why we do that? It's so that we can help one more person like myself, who was there 11 years ago, take one more step forward in following Jesus, realizing it's a journey, that you ain't going to complete these programs, but it's the faithfulness of those that give that make that possible. And Jesus had a lot to say about the heart and its connection to money. And so it's interesting. Listen, this ain't a ploy to get money out of you. I would never do that. All I'm saying is this, listen, if you're a first-time guest, no obligation. Just let us know it's your first time. We're actually going to go make a donation in your honor because we're glad that you're here, and we believe in making a difference in the community. So to honor your trip out, we're going to go ahead and do that. So just let us know. So ushers at all of our locations, you can go ahead and pass the buckets. If you got cash or check, you can drop them in the bucket. And please, please, please give us a connection card so that we can pray for you and join you on this journey. Now, I want to make you aware of a big date, and that's February 13th. Anybody know what weekend that is? It's the weekend that the Chiefs will not be in the Super Bowl. I'm just kidding. I got some Bills fans here, and they're pumped about that. Hey, no, this is our baptism weekend. Why? It's a big weekend, and so that's why we wanted to do it on Super Bowl. And they're fun because we believe that when you give your life to Jesus, it's one of the biggest moments in your life. And when you get in the tank to make that decision public for everybody to know, we love to clap and cheer and celebrate that and cheer that on because that's one more person taking a faithful step forward. So we would love it if you would come out, bring some family, bring some friends, because it is a big, fun day here at North Point, and we would love for the opportunity for you guys to come and celebrate. But most importantly, I'm going to pull a QR code up just in case we pass the buckets and you didn't get this in. If you are waiting on this decision, please don't. Please don't. God is proud of you right where you are, and right where you are is good enough for him. He just wants you to start to follow him. Step in the tank. Let us celebrate with you, and one step at a time, you'll be able to put another one in front of you after you're done with that. So would you go ahead and stand with me at all of our locations? Hey, we've got a team of people, pastors, volunteers, at doors, out in the lobbies. Take an opportunity right now to go and meet some of them. If you don't know anybody, it's not okay with us that you stay disconnected. We want to meet you and we want to know you. So take a second, find somebody, say hello, and we'll see you next week, North Point.